some of the workers were wearing cameras on their foreheads. Is this what humans will become? Are we training robots now? When you hear a quote like that, you might immediately think we're talking about some dystopian sci-fi movie. But we aren't. We're actually talking about rural towns in India, like Kuru. Right now, workers in textile factories are literally wearing GoPros and Meta smart glasses for 6 to 8 hours a day, capturing their every single movement to feed data to artificial intelligence.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating and frankly urgent dynamic playing out in the global tech supply chain. A staggering $1.5 trillion is currently pumping into AI, and India is rapidly positioning itself as the world's low-cost data factory to meet all that demand. But the core question we're going to unpack today is this. Does acting as the world's AI data factory actually foster long-term sovereign growth for India? Or does it risk trapping a massive workforce in the exact same back-office role they've played for decades? So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The human AI factory. 2. We'll ask if it's empowering or extractive. 3. The threat to the back office. 4. The hardware gap. And finally, 5. The path to sovereignty. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the human AI factory. To really grasp this, we have to look at what the foundation of this trillion-dollar global AI industry actually looks like on the ground. Because it doesn't just look like glowing green code on a dark screen, right? It looks like human beings. The reality of data annotation is wild. Before a high-tech robot in a shiny San Francisco lab knows what a coffee cup even is, a human being sitting in small-town India has to train it. Companies are hiring workers to record what is called egocentric data. This basically means ordinary people are capturing their day-to-day household chores, folding clothes, sweeping the floor, washing pots and pans. They then annotate this information step by step so computer algorithms can learn to mimic human behavior. It is literally the ground floor building block of modern robotics. And the scale we're talking about here, it is absolutely staggering. 500 million. Some AI robotics companies expect 500 million hours of annotated data to be generated in a single day. A single day. To meet a volume that incredibly massive, the global tech industry is leaning heavily on India's most unique asset, its 1.5 billion population. The demand for human-in-the-loop training is exploding, and India has the sheer scale to deliver it. Moving on to Section 2, empowering or extractive. We really have to ask what happens when you turn millions of people into living data generators. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, we are seeing real economic empowerment. For many rural women and first-generation graduates, especially in socially conservative areas, this is an absolute lifeline. It gives them local jobs, sometimes paying around 10,000 rupees a month, and provides financial independence without forcing them to migrate to crowded megacities like Mumbai or Bangalore. But on the flip side, critics make a strong case that this is an extractive supply chain by design. It's low-value-add work. These workers aren't producing indigenous tech. They're just the raw material. And the darkest irony of all this, they might literally be data working their way out of future employment. They're training the exact robots and algorithms that could eventually replace them, all while foreign companies walk away with the lion's share of the profits. Which brings us to Section 3, threat to the back office. Because this very localized risk of replacement scales up to a massive macroeconomic threat for India's traditional tech legacy. Since the big tech boom of the early 90s, India has effectively been the undisputed back office for the world's multinational giants. And it's been incredibly lucrative. We're talking about a traditional IT services sector that contributes a massive $330 billion in exports. It is the country's major source of dollar income, built entirely on providing a huge, highly qualified English-speaking workforce that tackles routine tech jobs at a fraction of Western costs. But today, the whole industry is staring down this massive existential question. Will large language models wipe out that back office? The current AI boom is absolutely threatening that 25-year dominance. Think about it. The exact things the back office is famous for, high volume, repetitive, routine tasks in HR, accounting, basic coding, those are the prime targets for AI to replace. You just don't need an army of thousands of software engineers if a smart AI model can streamline the whole process in seconds.
So how did India's IT giants end up so exposed to this? Well, their immense historical success actually bred complacency. They were so wildly profitable just doing traditional back office work that private sector investment in research and development really lagged behind. They pretty much entirely missed the vanguard of the AI revolution. Instead of leading the charge, they're now stuck reacting to it. Let's shift gears to Section 4,
the hardware gap. If we zoom out to the global stage, how does India's strategy stack up against other nations in this AI race? Well, there is a very stark divide in geopolitical power forming right now. India's AI strategy heavily leans on that massive, cheap workforce, outputting software services and data annotation. Contrast that with nations like Taiwan and South Korea. Their focus, heavy manufacturing and high-level R&D. Their primary output is the actual physical microchips and hardware that make AI run in the first place. One strategy relies on cheap labor, while the other is busy securing actual, irreplaceable technological leverage. And let me tell you, global markets are definitely noticing this gap. Just look at the first few months of 2024. A staggering $25 billion of investment fled Indian markets. Where did all that capital go? It moves straight into markets like Taiwan and South Korea. Investors are directly seeking out the nations producing the vital hardware and chips required for the global AI race, which are resources India just does not have right now. This takes us to our final part, Section 5, the path to sovereignty. This strain of capital and the ongoing reliance on foreign tech giants is forcing a major reckoning. As researchers are quick to point out, simply offering up the sheer scale of a 1.5 billion population as a giant, cheap use case market for Western tech companies, that is not a pathway to sovereign resilience. Actually, it just echoes the old back office era all over again. If foreign entities own all the core technology and India is only providing the localized labor to train it, you're looking at an extractive relationship, not a sovereign one. So how do you shift from being an extractive supply chain to a fully technologically sovereign, developed nation by 2047? Based on the sources, it comes down to a few absolutely crucial steps. First off, there needs to be a massive increase in private sector investment in R&D. Second, a hard pivot away from just annotating data for other people's companies towards building indigenous large language models. And finally, instead of just exporting AI training, India has to adapt and integrate AI technology across all the real sectors of its own domestic economy to solve its own structural challenges. To wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. India has a unique asset that almost nobody else does, talent at massive, incredible scale. But if the local AI strategy relies purely on low-value data annotation, and those traditional back-office IT jobs get wiped out by the very algorithms they helped train, what exactly is the value of 1.5 billion people without high-value jobs? It's a really profound question about the future of human labor in this age of automation. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.